Hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, our topic is about PREPS Software 7 and how to get ready. Our speaker today is Patrick Kerr, a longtime PREPS expert here. With that, I'll pass it over to you and we'll get started.
All right, so our agenda today. We're going to go through the introduction to PREPS, talk about key features, then we'll dive into what's new with version 7, new features and enhancements. We'll talk about its integration with Prinergy Workflow 6. Then we'll actually get into a demonstration, summary, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. What is PREPS? So it's the industry-leading solution for error-free impositions. It's allowing you to accelerate and automate that imposition process, supports complex jobs for both digital and conventional workflows, allows the maximization of the sheet and minimization of waste. And then we have the ability to handle large libraries of template. PREPS is also available for use with third-party workflows and our Prinergy workflows, both Evo and Connect. Some of the key features that PREPS has offered, and this is since version 6. We have the advanced run list view, which is providing a live PDF preview and detailed job info. Assembly view offers drag and drop control over complex assemblies. You probably should put a little cross there for something I'm going to mention a little bit later, but for right now, let's just keep that in mind. And then the use of job intent. So let's increase our efficiencies where we have staff spending less time to prepare production work. So let's talk a little bit about some of those key features. So the advanced run list view, again, introduced with PREPS 6. You have the ability to see your page files, work with your run list, make decisions about offsets, other details about colors, and folio information. You then have the assembly view, and again, put a little cross by that, but just to highlight what the assembly view allows you to do is look at a bigger picture of that production job and look at it from how it might come into a finishing solution, how it's going to fold, or how it's going to be presented then to bindery. And you can take from that both product and part details and make those decisions. Job intent. So this is a capability that we introduced with PREPS 6, aligned to a JDF workflow. Allows you to describe what that job is with such details as date information, size information, expected color information, and expected output results. Gives you one nice flowing menu to do that. So what's going to be new with PREPS 7? Well, the first thing that I want to mention, and that goes back to that assembly view, it's PREPS Pro for everyone. We no longer have a distinction between Plus or Digital Pro licenses. Everybody gets a Pro feature set. So that means you get mixed binding style capabilities. You get that assembly view that I was highlighting earlier. You get no size restrictions. You get multiple part capability, JDF input, and auto signature creation. So you can see this list, and this has been historically the breakdown for our licenses. All of those have been wiped. It's everybody gets a Pro version now. There's new packaging functionality. So not only have we expanded what the imposition capabilities will be with step and repeat, we've also allowed for the UI to have changes where you can go in at a preference level and enable or disable between commercial print terminologies and packaging terminologies. We have some new smart mark capabilities specific for the packaging or tag and label, bearer bars, micro dots that can be used for flexo, and we brought back step and repeat custom marks. I'll show that in a demo. Some additional enhancements. We have gained from the technologies that we put into the Prinergy 6 operations, and that is to take advantage of some of the new sheet capabilities. So we have a press sheet optimization capability now through the Generate Press run. We have an enhanced job report, which I'll show you, which shows colors, dimensions, and equipment specifications. There is a new Marks Rule Editor. I call it MRE. We've got some new features there that not only are they aligned for the Prinergy 6 capabilities, but you can expand that to use for within your third-party workflows. And support for Acrobat X. Let's talk for a minute about integration with Prinergy Workflow 6. So while PREPS 7 is a standalone to work with third-party applications, there are some integration features to be aware of. So PREPS 7 is a major upgrade, and a lot of the support went towards that workflow integration. You now have the capability within the workspace environment to take advantage of new capabilities, resources, equipment, and materials, or our REM database. And you can utilize that information, compare it to your job intent, and have PREPS, basically under the hood, define an imposition on the fly with not only your page position, but marks, and all of that would be contained within the workspace environment. So let's take that sample for a second and see what I'm meaning. Let's combine that. So you have job intent, a description of what your customer has ordered. Let's compare that against your REM data, your resources, equipment, and materials, basically what your shop is capable of doing. Run that against what we call a scenario in the workspace environment. And then you're going to generate an imposition. So it takes the complexities that you have from your resources, equipment, and materials and provides you with a result. So those of you that might be working with an upfront environment or having to go into PREPS and build a template for each solution, here is an operational capability now that you can program with the Prinergy 6 workspace, enter your REM data, and then have Generate Imposition provide a result. I'm going to take you now through a demo of PREPS. It might seem like I'm highlighting some existing capabilities that we have with PREPS. That's great. I'd like you to take that as a learning moment if you're not already to PREPS 6 to see what the capabilities are with PREPS 6. Then I'll also get into some of the new features that we have. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and take advantage of one of our features, and that is to come in and describe a job using what we call JDF intent. So I'm going to put in my details. This could be somebody that's already in production. This could be somebody that might be a planner, CSR, etc. I have the ability here in the drop-down to change my product type. So if I go from commercial to packaging, you'll notice the view changes. Now I have artwork. I don't see any references to binding information, so it really is honing in on somebody that might be doing a packaging-based workflow. Enter a job ID, customer name, due date, page count. Basically, I'm filling in what I call intent of what I think this job is going to be. Then I go over into the right pane, and I can come in and define the aspects of this intent. So I'm going to have a cover. Let's give that an actual part type, and a number of pages, size, how I'm going to fold that page, choose a media, and color ink information. Okay. I'm going to add another part. In this case, I already have my cover, so now I'm going to come in and define my text component. And all of this information relates to, historically, what you would call a job ticket. Maybe it's something that your customer uploads through a website or whatever, but it's job details. Doesn't have anything specific to it yet, just enough information to go by. And once I've completed all that, I hit OK. All right? Now, as I mentioned in the slides, everybody now gets a pro version. So for those of you that have been running PREPS 6 Plus, you're now going to see an assembly view capability that you haven't seen before. And one of the reasons I touch on this is because as I'm looking at how I want this particular piece to be assembled, I have my cover, my text is kind of a 16 and an 8. I make the decision that I want it to fold differently. So I do a simple drag and drop, and that realigns or reprioritizes the sectioning information. Okay? Now, I'm going to come back to my pages. In this particular example, I'm actually going to pull in my artwork. Adding the artwork, I'm also going to add that into my pages list. And you see right away I'm getting some feedback. For example, my plan colors, I detailed as CMYK, and my actual colors has a little discrepancy. I can click on my artwork, get a preview of my artwork. Okay. Now, touching into the assembly view, you don't have to use the assembly view for this task. I like using it because I have it. But I can now click on my individual sections and determine a fold sequence for that. Based on the properties that I have defined, they could be preference related or individually, and enter all of my bindery-based properties. And I'm going to continue to finish this out for all of my folded sequences as necessary. And I'm using the fold pattern browser just to highlight so you can see the options that I have. I'm also coming in and doing some flips, possibly some rotates as necessary, because I need to take what was from how it folds to how I want to print. So once I've done all of that, I have, in essence, created a sequence that is ready to go. And if I go into my press runs view, you'll notice I don't have any kind of imposition. But because I've programmed everything, and because each of these individual sections has its bindery information, each part has also got some sheet details, I now can hit Generate Press Run, and PREPS will take that information and present for me a result. So here, I have my press run 1, which represents my on a 25 by 38, and it has taken that cover and stepped it 4 times on that sheet for me. I can go into my press run 2, which is representing of my 8-page, and this is all part of the new capability that you have with the Generate Press Run. It found that my sheet was large enough to put 2 8-page sequences, and it automatically did that. Now, I've made a determination that I want to actually run this as a work and turn. I simply remove the second product, and then I change my work style to be work and turn. And then finally, press run 3. Just a couple items to mention here. In case you hadn't noticed, my marks were also automatically added to the sequence when I hit Generate Press Run. And that brings us to the other new feature set that we have, or the expansion or enhancement of our Marks Rule Editor. So we've added new capabilities now in our Marks Rule Editor to help define based on product type, part type. We have, in addition, aligned for the Trinergy 6 Workspace REM database, new categories to come in and define. And every one of these items becomes a filter that you can compare against. So as marks are automatically placed, they will be placed according to your results. So brand new features that we have with the Marks Rule Editor. Okay. Now I've pulled this all together, and it's really ready for print. So I could go in and print and send that on its way. But I want to highlight the new job layout report capability that we have. So I've already done this in advance. I'm not going to do it right now, but I want to show you the results of that printout. So what you're looking at is the new print production report that PREPS 7 is capable of producing. It's very clean. It has been simplified. Let me zoom in a little bit here. So you have some details, product information, product type, due date information. You have a breakdown of your different parts. Let me go into the next page. And just to zoom in again, you can see the detailing information that we have here. So from the overall view, you see I've got a front and back. I've got colorant information. Let me zoom in a little bit more. You can see that we've got the various dimensions. Because I've got some front lips and back lip properties, they're kind of combined there. But you can also see assignments that are to the individual locations. And this is completed for every one of the signatures that are in that job. So here's the learn for my A page, and you can see the marks. So it's a new clean report structure that we have with PREPS. Hopefully you guys like it. All right, I'm going to go back to PREPS for a second. Okay, so that would have completed a job, and pretty much everything that when you exist in PREPS 6 today, except for the press sheet optimization that was aligned with the generated position, where the system took into account, I've got a sheet large enough, and it put N number up of the same section. And then finally, you had your print production report. So now let me take a moment to go into some of the other capabilities that we have. First of all, I'm going to visit preferences for a moment and show you that we have this new default product. So if I am a packaging or step and repeat shop that I typically only work with 2 pages, front and back or front only, then maybe packaging is a better solution for me. And it changes the user interface to match that. So let me create a new job. And you'll notice that my descriptions have changed here. The icons have even been updated. And I don't see it's planned artwork. Part type is immediately into what we call flat work mode. I don't see any information as it relates into binding work. Now, there are some other capabilities that we have here. We've also gone in and done a whole new consideration for how you use step and repeat. And so I'm going to talk for a minute about the new step and repeat function. And what you're going to notice is as I'm presenting this, I'm going to be working with a fold pattern. So this is different than what I would consider step and repeat for, say, a label making or a packaging environment. But I want you to consider that now that we have refreshed how step and repeat works, and we now have allowed step and repeat to take place with fold patterns. So I have this fold pattern, and granted, if I did generate press run, it would have given me a full sheet of these. But now I have the step and repeat function, which allows me to stretch and grow as need be to make N up of that solution. So the whole step and repeat mechanism has changed with PREPS 7. Okay. So while we're talking about step and repeat, let's go into a few more details. So previously, step and repeat, you clicked on, you got a sub-menu that allowed you to go in and control your step and repeat function. And that was great, but it was an inter-mode capability. Once you did it, you were done. Now with step and repeat, I've clicked on it, and you'll see here in a second on the far right, we will get step and repeat properties. My tool, I can click and drag. You see my step and repeat icon. And on the far right, I have access to my step and repeat properties. Now, As you saw, I just drew a box. This is a cell. This really has nothing to do with anything other than it is a rectangle. And from that rectangle, I can utilize it in a new way that we haven't been able to use with PREPS before. So first of all, I've got live corners. So I can click. You can see on each four corner, I've got these little hash marks. That allows me to click and drag and stretch that across my sheet. I can use my step and repeat dialog live to come in and change the attributes of my cell or the number of products that I have drawn or defined on that sheet. So a cell gives us a whole new capability. There is no assignment of pages here. If I'm in a die-making environment, maybe I know I need to have N across and Y tall of how many of those products on the sheet. I have this step and repeat capability. It also allows me to come in and take advantage of how I'm going to work with my pages. Trim to trim, bleed to bleed, allow a certain gutter, and the gutters allow me a horizontal or vertical difference. And then distances. So what could be the gaps between that? Okay. We also have expanded it now to include some interesting capabilities that packaging environments or tag and label might take advantage of, and that is to allow the artwork to shift based on your properties. And so this allows me to offset, maybe if there's an ink reason, I can shift my artwork. And it's all defined for me. The best part out of all of this is I can capture that. I now have the ability to save the step and repeat, and that comes into a whole new dialog under our layouts menu. So let me show you how I'm going to use this now that I've defined it. I'm going to actually create a new job, add a stock, add my step and repeat. Okay. Now again, I could have come in and used the step and repeat to be based on a die, how many across, how many tall. Those are decisions you can make. But the advantage now is, again, the step and repeat is still live. I can click on it. I can make adjustments as I need at any time. And now I'm going to add some artwork. So I take my customer file, add my artwork to my cell, step and repeat, and I have touch points. I can add it to a single cell, as you can see right now. I can add it to across the entire column, my row, if I get it right, there we go, or everything. And when I release, we compare the PDF trim size to the trim size of L. There's a difference. How do you want to react? I'm going to say yes. And it's going to automatically take that information and adjust its size to fit my artwork. Okay? So all new step and repeat capabilities that we have here. Not only the ability to make changes with the step and repeat on the fly, make adjustments through our properties pane, but then you also have the ability to come in and do shifts, capture it, and then if you have size differentials, you could come in and have it automatically size accordingly. Okay? All right. So let me highlight for you now a couple other features, and those are our new marks. Under our smart marks, we have a new bearer bar mark, again, aimed for the packaging and labeling market, but I also want to consider that it has some commercial aspects. Basically, this is going to be similar to a ghosting bar or ink takeoff bar. It's going to be on the left and right edge of my sheet. I can define the width of that, I can also define the colorant. So if I wanted to, I could come in and say cyan reverse yellow, and it's going to produce now a bearer bar for me. Let me go back to my mark color. Let's turn off cyan. Okay. So it's produced for me left and right on the sheet automatically this mark, 1 inch in width, and then it has its mark colorant. There are some other mark capabilities that we have. We have the new capability within a custom mark to have a duplication. This is what I referenced earlier, step and repeat marks. So I could duplicate a mark, whatever mark EPS that I choose, and then place that n number of times, say I need 5 times, horizontally or vertically with a distance or gap of whatever. So let's put 37 of these, and OK. And so I'll zoom in. You can see I now have at the bottom of my sheet the CMYK mark. I would probably never print it this way, but just to give you an indication of what we have here, the mark has been positioned 1 inch off each other all the way across my sheet. So again, a new feature that we have with PREPS 7. It was a gap that we had still from PREPS 5, but now we have available. We also have another new smart mark in our custom marks. This is predominantly aimed at our flexo and packaging markets. We have a reg microdot and microdot double. And these are very, very tiny little registration marks that historically in those environments are used to be within the work for registration. So we can come in and position them, then taking advantage of the duplication capabilities, position them across the sheet. Okay. All right. So just to summarize, PREPS is part of the overall KODAK unified workflow. It is integrated with Prinergy and can be used as a standalone application with Prinergy Evo, but it also can be used with third-party workflows. A couple questions just to touch on that we've been hearing and you might have, and as we're going to open this up for questions here in a few minutes. So when will PREPS Software 7 be released? Actually, next week we will go into early production with Prinergy 6 workflow, and PREPS version 7 is integrated with that. So that will be released with Prinergy 6 workflow. A standalone version of PREPS 7, for those of you that are working with third-party systems or Evo, will be available in September. September 23rd is the date. Will PREPS 5 templates work correctly if they are not converted to PREPS 6 format? So to work correctly, PREPS 5 templates should be converted to a PREPS 6 format. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go into PREPS and recreate them to be the same. We have a utility that has been shipped since PREPS 6, and it's called the PREPS Template Migration Utility. You'll find it in your Utilities folder in your PREPS install. Some cases it might be in an Extras folder, then Utility. And if you don't find it there, it's available on Partner Place. But the utility does just that. It converts your PREPS 5 or earlier templates. It verifies naming structures that are correct, and then it saves it out into a PREPS 6 format. Part of this conversion, so you're aware, is to take existing static mark definitions and convert them to smart marks. So it does make that change for you on the fly through the utility. Can PREPS utilize Pandora software layouts? We've been getting this a lot lately, especially since PREPS 7 is now introducing some packaging terminology and packaging capabilities. So no, PREPS is introducing the flat work and step and repeat capabilities, but we're not going to let you use a PND file, Pandora file, in the system. They're still separate applications, still have their own structures. Questions?
Yeah, we've got quite a few questions coming in, and they're coming in rapidly here. So first one, does PREPS 7 work with Prinergy 5?
Now the question is, how are you envisioning that work with? Is this integrated, or are you using PREPS to generate a PJTF and JDF, and then you're manually importing? My recommendation is the latter. You can try the integration, but I will be honest with you, we have not back-tested that. It should work, but from a safety standpoint and true integration, it's probably best that you do PREPS 7 separately, save or print out a PJTF or JDF, and then do an import process within the Prinergy workflow. Now, again, we haven't tested that functionality, and that is not something we look to do as a test. But
Patrick, also, I'm just getting a note from Monica, who does a lot of the technical work on PREPS, and she was just saying that the PREPS 7 with Prinergy 5, the license will not work.
The license, yes. I was just thinking from a standalone perspective. So,
okay.
Thank you.
So next question, will front-end data systems like EFI, ePace automatically communicate with PREPS 7?
Automatically communicate. That's an interesting wording there. So typically, if we're working with an MIS-driven workflow, i.e., let's say PACE, typically that information is programmed into what we call stripping parameters. And the stripping parameters are something that PREPS, yes, can consume through the JDF auto signature creation. However, if you're using this in conjunction with, I would hope, a Prinergy Connect workflow, then Business Link would be your primary entry point, and Business Link would then present that to the PREPS engine and generate a result for you. So maybe there's a follow-up question there. I'll let you come back on that.
Okay. Can you do stepped nested files, i.e. die-cut boxes?
You can, but I don't want to say you can do it exactly the way, say, Pandora does it. Pandora allows you to bring in a die and then uses that die file to snap and rotate and position and possibly even calculate bleed path. What PREPS will do is look at the artwork in a rectangular method, and you can overlay those graphics on top of each other. There are some settings that you would need to do for PREPS to allow the bleed to function correctly. But if we're trying to compare to, say, a Pandora capability, it would be unfair to make that comparison.
Okay. Are there any features that are directed towards web presses?
I would have to say PREPS 7 specific, no. I think we did most of our web capabilities when we worked in PREPS 6.2, 6.2.1, and 6.3, where we gave the user expanded capabilities with custom fold patterns. And through the use of custom fold patterns, then you can get into defining new folding sequences that are web specific. So that would be about the extent of it. That's available today.
Does PREPS 7 run on Mac and PC with multiple floating licenses?
As long as you have multiple floating licenses available, yes.
Will PREPS 7 allow for 2 or more files to be open at the same time?
Having a PREPS job open and then have another PREPS job open at the same time, and the answer is no. It's still the same, one at a time.
Okay. We touched on this question on our Q&A. We asked, will PREPS 5 templates work correctly? This question is, can you use PREPS 4 templates in PREPS 6 or 7?
You can use PREPS 4, PREPS 3. In fact, for those of you that have seen me do demos before, the sample templates that we ship with PREPS Those are PREPS 3 templates, and yes, you can use them. The only reason I mention about having the conversion utility is it sometimes makes it a little bit more forward-looking to convert those static marks into smart marks, and so you can utilize them differently.
Okay. The question just says, what about cut and stack? I guess does PREP 7 have cut and stack capability?
PREP 7 does have cut and stack capability. PREP 6 had cut and stack capability, and as far as changes between the two, there haven't been any made.
Can you save the step and repeat layouts as templates for later use?
Absolutely. I just showed you saving the step and repeat as a generic cell-based solution. But if you want to convert that into a template, you just go under the same file, save as template process, and you're done.
Does PREPS accept CFF2, in brackets, CAD imposition for packaging, I guess it's meant to say?
Yeah, so that comes back to the earlier question about snap to die and other capabilities. No, that's still something you're going to want to use with Pandora to take advantage of CF2, DXF, etc. files.
Okay. Can we import our current upfront data and layouts? We have version 4.2 of upfront.
So just so everybody is clear, as a product upfront in its database would have a phase where it writes in a press layout. That press layout in the upfront database is exactly equivalent to a PREPS template. Now, it's a PREPS 5 template if you wanted to compare what it is, but you can go into upfront and you can export those press layouts, from upfront and save them as a PREPS template. Now, is there a batch converter for that? There is not. To me, it would allow you then to go through and do a little bit of house cleaning and find out the specific ones that you know you use as standards and define those and save them into your PREPS template folder.
When will PREPS be released to full production?
So that's kind of one of the interesting things. When we go out in early production, as I mentioned in September for PREP 7, we call it early production, but in reality it's full production from a PREPS perspective. Like the Prinergy workflows, we don't have that different timeline. So while it's technically in early production, it is in essence full production for PREPS.
Okay.
September.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No, my fault.
Is there a folding library included with the standalone version of PREP 7?
Absolutely. So the JDF fold pattern library is included. It has been included since PREP 6. It is all based on the JDF fold pattern library. Again, as I mentioned in PREP 6.2, 6.2.1, we allowed you to start coming in creating your own custom fold pattern, so it allows you to define your own and add to that list should you not find the results you're looking for. And it continues with 7.
Okay, will PREP 7 allow for overlapping files, in brackets nested, odd-shaped pieces?
So that goes back to the earlier nested question, and the answer is yes. There are some functions that you would have to change within PREPS, within the default config file, to allow you to handle the bleed, but PREPS will see everything as a rectangle, and then it's just a matter of positioning those rectangles on top of each other correctly.
Let's see, in our workflow, our planners build the layouts sometimes before having the prepped pages ready to place. Can we do these two functions separately from each other?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was going through in my demonstration at the very beginning and using that new intent view, that to me would be that planner role. They can define the aspects of that job intent information and save it. The job does not have to be completed to be saved. And then we could have a pre-press professional come in and finish it out, make some of the imposition decisions, and finish that solution. So yes, you can phase it.
Okay. Can I have PREP 6 and 7 on the same computer using one at a time during the learning process?
Yes.
We are using PREPS 6 and have an issue creating JDFs with proper separations. With PREPS 5, we were able to turn on and off any color, including CMYK. We lost that ability in 6. Was this addressed in 7?
So a couple of things to mention with respect to the difference between PREPS 5 and PREPS 6. PREPS 5 was still utilizing a PostScript-based engine and was PostScript-based. PREPS 6 went to a JDF-based engine, or excuse me, PDF-based engine. And from that respect, working with the JDF at that point in time, it got simplified from the standpoint that the JDF itself is only going to contain all the information that is within it. And it's then up to the output side or the RIP or the workflow side to make the determination with respect to separations, signatures, and how that information would be presented then to the output. We send everything. 5 allowed you the flexibility to have some of that because there was a pseudo RIP, if you want to call, capability, but ultimately that decision-making was just simply defining the JDF with the tagging information within it. It still ultimately came down to the workflow or the RIP to make those decisions. So yes, while it did give the appearance that that was happening with 5, it still was one big file with the data tags in it. You just had it yes, no, etc. With 6, that did change. And maybe that relates to the 2 questions I've already put to the offline that we would address.
Okay. I believe that only smart marks will work in PREPS 7. Is this true?
That is not true. Smart marks were introduced actually in PREPS 5. They have had lots of enhancements and new capabilities as you've moved from PREPS 5 to 6 and now to 7. But smart marks have been around since PREPS 5.
Is there a shingling or creep function?
There is. That was something we introduced within the PREPS 6 portfolio. I think it was 6.2, 6.2.1. The number is escaping me. But it is based on the stock resource properties. And you can enable an auto-shingling and auto-bottling rule capability based on the stock.
Okay, can we view all the impositions in a single window pane like we can in PREPS 5?
So we're talking about 2 different features there. PREPS 5 lets you view all of the imposition when you are in a template editing mode. When you were doing your signature creation, you got this big overview of things. That was only in the template editing mode. You didn't get it when you were in the actual job mode. You could see a pseudo proxy image of what would be represented as a front and a back, but you never got a true representation of that layout. In PREPS 6, when we introduced it, template building became part of the press run's view. So you were looking at a press run one at a time, and you were creating your templates at that point one at a time, just like you would if you were creating a signature one at a time. So to answer your question is no, the capability does not exist in PREPS 6 or 7, but we were comparing 2 different data points between PREPS 5 and 6.
Is KODAK's intention to replace Pandora with PREPS going forward?
No, I'll just keep the answer simple.
Can you bottle or shingle pages?
Yes, we've had that ability since PREPS 4. It's been expanded in PREPS 6.2.1, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, with the new stock resources capability, but yes.
After using the step and repeat custom mark feature, can you change the properties, i.e. color?
Yes, that's also part of the new mark capability that we have with PREPS 7.
Can you share more information about press, bindery-specific smart marks or groups, how to make them, etc.?
That would take some time. We would have to do that as a recording to talk about some smart marks and defining and then how to use them as smart mark groupings.
Will PREPS 7 support web growth?
So PREPS 7 does support web growth. PREPS 6 supports web growth. Both of those capabilities are only available, however, in a non-KODAK workflow. So if you're using EVO or you're using Prinergy Connect, the web growth solution is assumed to be coming from the Prinergy Evo or Connect workflow. But with third-party workflows, yes, it is available.
Okay. Has the PDF import issue identified in version 6 where certain PDFs crashed the application been addressed in version 7?
It's a fair answer for me to say I don't know because I don't know the details surrounding that. I do know that we have the ability now to work with Acrobat X, Acrobat 10, or the PDF library associated with that. So maybe that particular file was based on the newer PDF lib that PREPS couldn't handle at the time, but I don't know without having more information.
Okay. When importing an imposition, can you add creep?
It can be in two different ways. I'm trying to understand the question. If we're importing the imposition or we're in PREPS, that to me is the place where you would define your shingling or creep values. If we're talking about importing it or using like a business link or MIS-derived or Prinergy-derived imposition, I think we've gotten too far down the road on that. The shingling and creep values should be defined within PREPS.
What is a good upgrade path for us to follow going from PREPS 5 to 6? Any recommended best practices?
So, start. That's the first one. Something, and this is what I've talked to my peers about doing, is if you really want to buckle down and learn PREPS 6, take some of your existing PREPS 5 templates. Open them up in the PREPS 5 template editor. Look at them. Maybe even have it on a separate computer if you have that advantage. But side by side, look at what you have in your PREPS 5 and walk through the template building exercises that you have with PREPS 6. And whether that means you're doing it through the classic methodology, create imposition as we all know it, which exists in PREPS 6, or you're taking advantage and using the new fold patterns or custom fold patterns. The point is you have the capability of doing what you did in PREPS 5. It's just a matter of getting comfortable with the new user interface.
Okay, so just to be respectful of people's time, we're just a minute after the hour here. I will just post in the chat window here a couple of links for additional information. We do have a blog post that was written by Patrick where he talks a little bit about PREPS 5 versus 6 and goes into a bit of detail about the features in 7. I know we didn't get to all of the questions, so if there's something you'd really like to for us to get back to you on, please visit this Ask the Experts page, and there's a link there where you can just submit any questions that you have that you'd like someone to respond back to you directly. I guess first and foremost, thank you everybody for attending this webinar, and thank you for your interest in PREPS and for staying on the line here, and for all of your questions. We do try to add some of the questions to the frequently asked questions page there so that everybody can have access to that information as well. So just wanted to point that out for you. And last but not least, I would like to thank everyone for attending. And Patrick, if you'd like to wrap it up.
I would like to add, as Laura just mentioned, the Ask the Experts form. For those of you that I had a question that I asked that we would take offline, please submit the question through the Ask the Experts. And there's two reasons for that. One, it gives us a tracking capability of it. Two, we can then publish that to the wider audience. Then if there is questions that we have to come back to you on, we can ask those questions back to you directly and get the information so we can give you the correct answer. Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Appreciate your time.